Welcome to Snyder's Inc., where the fun never ends. Reactions, gaming, and more with Josh as your friend. Tune in, buckle up, it's a ride you don't wanna miss. Snyder's Inc., let's dive in, feel the ultimate bliss.
Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And today we have got Nick Crowley video, YouTube's darkest videos, part 8. We're going to get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button, hit subscribe button, comment, think down below. Let's go. Oh, I forgot to mention this in the first bit. If you would like to become a member of this channel, join the channel, you can do that. Link is in the description. Now let's go.
It was 2:46 p.m. when the ground began to shake.
Knock it off.
For residents of Anagawa, Japan, earthquakes were nothing new, but this one was different. It carried with it a violence that none of the locals had ever felt before, and by the time the shaking had stopped, everyone in the city seemed to be left in a momentary state of shock. This was especially true for the nearly 160 Chinese workers and students that had recently moved to the area, with most
Oof! Imagine now you moved to an area just recently and then a tsunami hits it, so or an earthquake, or both, you're screwed.
most having never experienced any earthquake, let alone one of this magnitude. Of these workers were a tight-knit group of 20 women who had recently been hired as trainees at a company called Sato Susan, a company that sold fresh seafood. And having been at work at the time of the quake, they frantically ran out of the building and stood in the street desperately trying to figure out what to do next, unaware of the fact that the real horrors were still yet to come. In Japan, it's not just the earthquakes you have to worry about, but the tsunamis that often follow, and usually the bigger the earthquake, the bigger the wave. And given that Anagawa was right on the sea and Sato Susan was directly on the shoreline, these women were now standing directly in the path of an impending disaster. Thankfully, their boss, Mitsuro Sato, was well aware of what was to come, and quickly he yelled to the women to seek higher ground. But given their unfamiliarity with the area, Sato knew that he would have to be the one to lead them there. The group readily listened, and they quickly followed Sato as he led them up a set of stairs on a nearby hill, where they eventually reached a shrine that overlooked Anagawa and the sea. It was the highest point in the area, and should keep them safe from what would likely be a massive influx of water. And sure enough, as they neared the top, Sato's fears were already coming true. As the sea had drastically retreated, it was now beginning to push forward, and things were only going to get worse from here. But despite understanding this, it wasn't a deterrent for Sato, as once he deemed the altitude safe enough for this group of women, he then turned around and began to walk back down the hill towards the slowly flooding city. The girls yelled at him asking where he was going, which is when he revealed that down below in his home in Anagawa were his wife and his daughter, who were now directly in the path of this unfolding disaster. And
Oh man, so he helps these 20 women get to the top of this hill, and he's like, I'm saving my wife and my daughter. I'm turning around, facing this thing, and I gotta save them, make sure they're okay.
he was going to save them. The girls screamed out to him, begging him not to go, as things had already become incredibly dangerous, but he didn't so much as turn his head as he stepped down onto the street and disappeared from their view. And it was at this time that one of those girls standing high atop the hill began to record. All my life, family has been super important to me. I love—
Nope, no, Mr. Nick Crowley, you know the rules. There we go. You don't. Anyone wants an ad read? You contact me and you're gonna pay me.
The footage shows that the shoreline was no more, as the water had inundated the entire area as it slowly crept its way deeper and deeper into the city streets. The women were understandably in a panic, trying to make sense of this ordeal that they were now given a front row seat to. And as they record, we can hear them desperately calling out for Sato, but at no point do we see him. We just know that he's down there, somewhere. And as the desperation in their pleas increases, so too does the fury of the water.
I would be terrified if I was these women. I'd be fucking terrified. Because you are now in a situation where tsunami's there. You don't know where to go. You don't know anywhere of your surroundings. And you might see, and as you see a tsunami taking over, and you don't know if it's going to get to you or not. So you don't know if you're going to still live or not. That would be terrifying.
They could only watch as Anagawa as they knew it was completely eviscerated. And by this point, they realized that there was now essentially no hope for Sato. It was at this time that the women realized that despite already being at a considerable height, it still might not be enough, and so they ran even higher up the hill, desperately trying to get out of the path of this water. And as they did so, they noticed something down below.
What the hell? The dude is that a dude on the roof? Is that a dude on the roof of a building? What the hell?
Standing on a rooftop in the middle of this massive tsunami was Mitsuro Sato. The building that he stood on was once a full 2 stories off the ground, but was now just a few inches above the surface of the water. The women again call out to him, this time even more frantically, but at this point, it was no use. And when the camera is taken off Sato for just a split second, we can hear just from the women's reaction, the exact moment that he swept away. The recording stops shortly after, and restarts minutes later, revealing that the streets where the women had been standing just moments before were now fully underwater, and the buildings that once stood around them were now reduced to nothingness. In front of them was a sea of death, and had Mitsuro Sato not led them up that hill, then all of these women would have certainly been a part of it.
Yeah.
The date was March 11th, 2011.
That's insane. He led these women up and then went to go save his daughter and his wife. I would love to know if he actually, were they okay, or did he or were they taken too? Did they all 3 die? But these 20 women survived because of him. His selflessness. He didn't think about anyone but him, anyone besides himself. He thought of anyone besides himself. He wanted to help 20 women, wanted to help his wife, wanted to help his daughter, didn't think about his safety at all.
A day where Japan had been hit by its most devastating earthquake ever, with it ringing in at a magnitude 9.0, which in turn caused the nation's worst ever tsunami, as that day, 19,759 people would lose their lives, with Mitsuro Sato being one of them. But against all odds, his wife and daughter were not part of that death toll, as it's been reported that they were later found alive and unharmed. The devastation that occurred that day.
Oh my god, they were okay, and he went to save. Oh my, his selflessness got him killed, but wow. Look, I can't say nothing but a hero for that man.
Is incomprehensible. And all the footage of this disaster could warrant a place in this video, especially the footage of Anagawa, as you can see what it looked like before, during, and after. But what I found so interesting about this was all throughout this disaster were stories like Sato's, a man who risked his life to save 20 women that he hardly knew, and a man who gave his life trying to save his family, walking directly into the path of the worst natural disaster in modern Japanese history, all in an attempt to save the ones that he loved. And I honestly find it quite beautiful that afterwards, these women adamantly shared his story and made sure that the world forever remembered Mitsuro Sato as the hero that he was. And of those 160 Chinese migrants who worked in the area, it was later reported that not a single one of them perished, which speaks volumes about the people of Anagawa, who so readily put others' lives before their own.
Wow. That is fucking incredible. Genuinely, that's incredible. They made sure all the workers and all that was safe before their own. That's how much they cared about. That's how much they put everyone before themselves. That's fucking incredible.
Fire marshal is investigating a blaze in Georgetown. 2 people found dead inside the home, and so far it's not known how the fire started.
It was just past 5:30 a.m. on the 17th of February 2021 when residents of a small neighborhood in Georgetown, Ontario were awoken by the sound of sirens blaring. One man frantically grabbed his cell phone and rushed outside to record the unfolding scene, where he was met with a horrific sight. His neighbor's home was fully engulfed in flames.
Holy shit.
It must have happened quickly, as by the time rescue workers even arrived on the scene, there was already little hope of saving the house, or any of its occupants. It would take hours before that blaze was finally quelled, revealing the charred devastation inside, as firefighters would find the remains of 56-year-old Christina Rirak and 59-year-old Andrew Rirak within the home's garage. The cause of this fire was initially unknown, but quickly the situation was deemed suspicious when experts determined that the fire had started as a result of some sort of explosion that had happened within the garage where the couple's bodies were found. This was later confirmed by security footage obtained from a neighbor who lived across the street, capturing the moments when it suddenly ignited around 5:27 a.m. There was clearly something off with this case, and things only became more sinister following the autopsies of Andrew and Christina, which revealed that they hadn't actually died in that fire, and instead, both of them had been stabbed to death, with Andrew also being badly beaten. This fire wasn't started to kill them.
Started to cover up evidence and to destroy their bodies.
It was started to cover up their murder.
Yeah.
And it did a good job of it too, as the scene was now left completely destroyed, with very little evidence being left behind. But there was something else investigators thought to check. That's security footage. The camera had been facing the garage where all of this carnage seemed to have happened, and so they thought maybe if they looked back far enough, it could at the very least show what had led up to this brutal attack. And so they rewound that footage, going back hours and hours, during all of which the garage had remained perfectly still, until they got all the way back to 6:42 of the day prior, February 16th. The film showed the moments that the couple had arrived home together inside of Christina's car, which Andrew had been driving that night, as he pulled uneventfully into the garage. This was the last time this couple was seen alive on camera, which on its own is disturbing enough. But as it turns out, there was something far more unsettling about this footage, as it revealed the fact that Christina and Andrew weren't alone.
What? What? So some dude attacked them, stabbed them the day before, then came back a day later to blow it up? Or stayed in the place a day and then blew it up?
The footage showed a tall figure, its features completely shrouded in darkness, almost as if it were a shadow, with this figure lying in wait out of sight on the side of the house, until right after Andrew pulls the car into the garage, when this person slips in behind them. It's impossible to say for sure if the couple noticed this person or not, but it appears that they likely didn't, as they both start to exit the vehicle, to which the figure then ducks down in an attempt to avoid detection. Until the garage door begins to slowly close. Neither Christina or Andrew would make it out of that garage alive, as just seconds after this footage, they both would be brutally murdered by this unidentified person. The footage is terrifying and speaks to that innate fear in most of us, the fear of being followed, of being watched, and attacked.
Yeah, I don't like this part. I don't like this. Look, I already have a paranoia that feels like I'm always being watched, or I'm always, someone's following me and I'm walking down the street in, like, the nighttime or whatever. I don't need this shit. I'm always well aware of my surroundings, so, if I'll be followed, trust me, instincts will kick in. But yeah, I'm way too, this would terrify the shit out of me. The thought of this scares the shit out of my already terrified ass.
Act in the moments where we least expect it. It's paranoia-inducing, and made even more off-putting by the fact that this clearly seemed to be premeditated. Whoever this was knew their schedule and had been waiting for them to arrive home, in a place where they knew they wouldn't be seen. But by this point, their motivation was as unknown as their identity. Following the discovery of this footage, bits and pieces were released to the press in order to get the public's help in identifying this unknown assailant. It represented a rare instance of a killer being clearly caught on camera right before committing a crime, but that's also what made this case so frustrating, as despite the video capturing this person, none of their features were discernible at all. Unsurprisingly, the footage didn't bring in any relevant leads, but it at the very least showed investigators that whoever this person was knew the couple, due to its obvious premeditation.
Yeah.
Though when looking into both Andrew and Christina, it was clear that neither of them really had any enemies in their life, with the exception of one. Harrison Brown was a 27-year-old employee at a company called Rogue Transportations, of which Christina happened to be the vice president of operations, and during his time there, Harrison was known to be abrasive and combative, with Christina often having to be the one to reprimand him, leading to Harrison resenting her.
Oh, okay, so this crazy guy would get aggressive with employees. She'd be like, hey, you can't be doing that. You can't be getting aggressive with other employees. And he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill this woman for daring to stop the great Harrison Brown from getting aggressive with people. What a fucking psycho.
It isn't clear how police were tipped off about this strained working relationship, but they had somehow grown suspicious enough of Harrison to pay his home a visit, and what they found inside showed that this resentment he had towards Christina had actually morphed into a twisted obsession. Inside, police found satellite images of the rear ex home, along with the software on the man's computer and cell phone that showed that on the 12th of February he had secretly attached a tracking device to Christina's car, and he had been tracking her movements for days, which is precisely how he knew when she would be arriving home. And
No, that's psychotic. No, this guy did it. Yeah, there's no ifs, ands, or doubt. This guy's psycho. This guy is psycho. That's psycho ass shit. You ain't convinced me otherwise.
as if this revelation wasn't damning enough, they would also find a broken knife in his garage that contained trace amounts of Christina's blood. It was obvious what Harrison had done, and when confronted with this evidence, there was nothing more he could say other than the truth. So he admitted he had grown a hatred for Christina because of the way that she had treated him at work, and he decided that he needed to get his revenge. That's when he purchased this tracking device and began obsessing over her movements, studying them before finding the perfect time and place to strike. And on February 16th, he waited outside the rear ex home and snuck into their garage before attacking and killing them both. After the assault, Harrison would leave the home, where he began to grow paranoid about being caught, and so he returned to the house the very next morning to start that fire, with the hopes being that the blaze would cover up his tracks. Though thankfully, this didn't work, and after pleading
Thank God.
guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson, Harrison Brown would be sentenced to life in prison.
All 20, Uzi, roll over TC. I've got an unresponsive female. I gotta mail the car, refuse to get out.
It's the eve of Thanksgiving, 2015. Police officer Patrick Feaster sits in his cruiser parked alongside the road in the town of Paradise, California, waiting for his first action of this uncharacteristically quiet night. His car was facing the direction of a well-known local cantina, which patrons were known to drive away from under the influence. And sure enough, as the clock approached midnight, the calmness around Feaster would be shattered by the sight of a car speeding out of the restaurant's parking lot. The car went unseen by Feaster's dashcam, but not by Feaster himself, as he took off, doing his best to catch up with the car that was now speeding down the road, and within a few seconds, he does. As the car slowly comes into frame for the first time, inside that vehicle was 26-year-old Andrew Thomas and his ex-wife, 23-year-old Darian Aaron. Andrew had been drinking heavily that night and was well over the legal limit, with his driving showing as much as he failed to pull over once Feaster approached him, resulting in a police chase that would only end up lasting just a few seconds.
Why is a dude hanging with an ex-wife? Am I weird for thinking ex-wives hanging out with their ex-partners kind of weird? Maybe. Maybe I'm weirdo for that. I just feel like... I just find that weird. I don't know why. I do.
All 20 on you, roll over TC, Pearson, just east of Black Olive.
Copy, roll over TC, east of Black Olive.
As Andrew would drive his car directly into a median, causing the SUV to flip over violently before coming to a halt on its side.
Okay, but this wouldn't be on here for that reason, so what else happens?
In that instant, Darian was ejected from the vehicle, being thrown straight through the windshield and landing onto the asphalt, where, despite still being alive, her injuries were likely unsurvivable. But Andrew, on the other hand, was still inside the vehicle, and he seemed to have been left relatively unharmed. As perhaps being boosted by adrenaline, he quickly tried to crawl his way out of the car in a desperate attempt to check on Darian, with Officer Feaster's dashcam capturing the entire ordeal. Though just as Andrew attempted to do so, we see Feaster step into the frame, where he suddenly draws his gun, and without saying a single word, fires 2 shots at Andrew, with one of...
This was done for me. This one was done for... So I did a short calling out people who believe in ACAB. All cops are bastards. Because I don't believe that. And just the day after I do that, or like 2 days after I do a video where there's a cop who for no reason shoots an individual. This guy's getting out of his car. He's not done anything. He's just getting out of a car that's flipped over. You probably would ask him to do that anyways. Just putting that out. That would have been what he asked him to do. He would have seen him alive and say, get out of the car if you can. So the guy's getting out of his car and you shoot him. What? That's even if you think he's planning to escape. Shooting him is not the first resort. What the fuck are you doing?
The bullets appearing to strike him, causing his body to go limp as he falls back into the car. It happened in a literal instant, so fast that it's clear Feaster had most likely accidentally discharged his weapon.
No, I don't believe that. Nope. Because here's the reason why I don't... He did twice. 2 shots. So it means he did it... He pulled the trigger twice.
As there was no attempt at communication before the shot was fired, with Andrew clearly posing no risk to him, as both of his hands were being used to hoist himself up. From the footage, this all seems to be a horrible accident, and one that Feaster seemed to recognize right away, as he rushed up to the car, pointing his flashlight at the man that he had just shot, staring at him for over 10 seconds, trying to make sense of what he had just done, before he finally snaps out of it, and uses his radio to call for backup. Though this is when this already dark video starts to become much more disturbing.
I've got an unresponsive female. I got a male in the car refusing to get out.
When Feaster...
A male in the car refusing to get out. She was getting that before you shot him. You trying to lie now? You lying to police? To your people to get yourself out good? You selfish little fucker. You little fucker. You selfish bastard. Only thinking about yourself.
Feaster makes this call, he never mentions the shooting,
No.
and instead he states that the driver was refusing to get out of the vehicle. This is then followed by Feaster walking away from the man and pointing his flashlight to the ground, almost as if he was looking for something.
Copy, give your cross on Black Olive.
Pearson.
Copy, Black Olive and Pearson.
With some theorizing that he was looking for his shell casing.
I believe that completely.
Though right then, another officer arrives on the scene and begins to survey the wreckage.
Just her? No, there's a male in the car refusing to get out.
Where, again, Feaster says that Andrew was refusing to get out of the car, making no mention of the fact that he had just shot him. It's clear at this point what Feaster was trying to do. He was trying to cover up his accident, but this suddenly became more difficult when Andrew started to speak.
Okay, they got one. He's refusing to get out. Get out of the car, sir. You're not shot, sir. Get out of the car.
Andrew Thomas was still alive and had muttered to Feaster that he had been shot, but even to his face, Feaster denies it. Shortly after, Andrew then tries to tell the other cop what had happened.
Sir, get out of the car. The car's still on, and I don't want you to get hurt. Yeah, I was right there. I saw it.
Did you get shot at the cantina? Who shot you? The cop did not shoot you.
But understandably, this other cop wasn't believing him, as surely Feaster would have said something at this point. And so, the minutes start to pass. And after 5 full minutes, Feaster continues processing the scene like nothing had happened, with the other officer being left to theorize that Andrew must have been seriously injured and was likely in a state of shock, which is why he was making all of these strange claims about being shot.
He may be hurt in there. Yeah, I know he is. He's in shock at the very least.
From here, the footage cuts, and we're only left with the audio from that same officer's body cam, as he attempts to get more information from Andrew.
Sir, I need you to talk to me so I know you're okay. Sir, take a look at me. Did you bump your head?
But by this point, he had gone completely silent.
Of course, because he's been shot and killed. He's dead probably because of this guy. Oh, and this guy's probably gonna get nothing, right? This guy gets nothing as a result. I guarantee you this guy gets no punishment. I will bet you money.
I don't know if serious or not.
10 minutes later, the footage then cuts back on, this time to another officer's body cam, which shows that an ambulance had now finally arrived on the scene, with medics first directing their attention to Darian, who was in the worst shape, as she would tragically be pronounced dead shortly after. But despite all of these first responders on the scene, none of them had any idea that the man inside that vehicle had just been shot, and shot by one of their colleagues. And in these moments, Andrew was slowly losing his life as each minute passed. It would take 11 full minutes before Feaster finally confessed.
Sir, you hold this scene, Manny, with me. We're going over to the cantina to find out if this guy...
I wasn't even pointing at him.
Saying that he might have shot the man, but he wasn't sure. And immediately after saying this,
Oh my God, are you serious?
Body cam goes off. Oh man, this isn't proving my point well. I'll admit it. This isn't proving my thought of all cops aren't bastards wrong. This ain't proving right. This is more proving them right. Oh boy.
the recording is stopped, and the footage comes to an end. Sure enough, in that moment, Officer Patrick Feaster had in fact shot Andrew Thomas, with a bullet striking him directly in the neck, and the reason why he wasn't getting out of his vehicle was because that gunshot had left him fully paralyzed from the neck down. His condition was awful, and made worse by the length of time that it took for him to receive proper treatment, and despite fighting for weeks, Andrew Thomas would lose his life less than 1 month later, due to that gunshot wound.
I know. You're gonna tell me he barely was any punishment towards him. I know it. The worst I bet this gets is he loses his job. I bet you.
Afterwards, Feaster admitted that he did fire his gun, but claimed that in the moment he wasn't actually sure if he had hit Andrew, but many found this hard to believe.
Okay, even if you're not sure if why'd you fire your weapon in the first place? You didn't need to. Would you fire it just to scare him? Would you? Doesn't matter. Why'd you fire your weapon?
As his gun clearly goes off while he's pointing it at Andrew, and he clearly gets a good view of him immediately after the fact. Not to mention the fact that Andrew literally told him over and over again that he was shot. But for many, by far the most incriminating moment was when Feaster appeared to be looking for his shell casings. And because of his actions, Officer Patrick Feaster would be found guilty of manslaughter and receive a prison sentence of 180.
I fucking knew it! That's 180 days! 100, 30, 60, 90, 20, 120, 150. 6 months. He got 6 months in jail. 6 months in jail. He probably got out of good behavior too. Bobby was only 60. Knowing his fucking ass and knowing these stupid bastards.
Days. A decision that was heavily contested
I'm
but
not
ultimately
surprised.
upheld. And while no one is defending Andrew Thomas's decision to drink and drive that night, Feaster's use of deadly force and his blatant attempt at covering it up make this footage harrowing nonetheless.
Yes, that's so fucked. There are many who believe that Officer Feaster intentionally shot Andrew that night. It's difficult to explore this theory without being able to show the full footage. That's why I recommend looking up the case for yourself and drawing your own conclusions. Look, I got my theory. I want to hear yours, but I got my theory. I think I can pretty much explain it easily. A man looked at a man who was getting out of a car, no weapon in hand, pulled his gun, fired it twice. So more, to me, once is an accident. You know, you could be jolted, like just pull it out quickly and it just goes off. Twice, I think you can't do by accident. He then looked for his shell casings, told the guy, despite shooting at his direction, that he was never shot, and then just covered it up, and then everyone covered it up. I have my theory on if he was shot intentionally or not. I'll let your theory, man, that though. Let me know in the comments.
I do this for real, bro. I don't got no problem with giving back, man. I'm the only one out here with a show that's actually giving back, you feel me? And I got proof to show it.
It's May 2013. 23-year-old Quamaine Wilson arrives at his local bank in Chicago, Illinois to deposit $20,000 cash, which he planned on giving out to groups of his most adoring fans.
Man, about to go get this $1,000 out for the fans, man. Really, I'm gonna take out $20,000, man. Just to show people, you feel me? I'm on a whole different level with this.
To this point, Quamaine had carved out a respectable following on his YouTube channel, where he acted in a series called The Nick Story.
One more word out your mouth, and that's your last. It's your life. I'm gonna take it myself and put it in my graveyard with the rest of them.
Along with posting music he made under the name Young QC.
Out her song, but not until she's. I know she will. I'm gonna get you.
Based on his viewership alone, his success was apparent, and he wasn't shy about showing off the wealth that he claimed to have accrued as a result of it, posting photos and videos of himself flaunting large amounts of cash across his social media pages. But this video was by far his most boastful yet, as he would take that $20,000 and throw it into the air for all of his fans to fight over. With Quamaine clearly relishing in the opportunity to show off his riches, despite the fact that behind the scenes, things weren't quite as they seemed.
So, I don't know the story. I don't know this theory at all. Did he rob someone? Did he rob a bank? Was he a bank robber no one knew? Did he rob someone? Did he kill someone with no, life insurance wise? Those are three I got. He robbed a bank, he robbed someone, or he killed someone for life insurance.
The truth was, Quamaine had actually earned very little from his channel despite its viewership, with this being on account of his videos containing copywritten music, and the fact that he only had a dozen or so uploads. In fact, his social media flexing had started well before he even made his first video, as in reality, all of this money was coming straight from his mother, Yolanda Holmes. Having started a successful business in Chicago, Yolanda made a great living for herself and Quamaine. And being her only son, Quamaine was given just about anything he could have asked for. She would buy him designer clothes, jewelry, and even the Mustang seen in this video. But for Quamaine, it never seemed to be enough. He wanted to achieve a life of fame and riches, and he used his mother's finances to sell the illusion that he already had, asking her again and again to purchase him things that could help him sell this dream, until one day, it all came crashing down, when Yolanda would tragically lose her life. Just like that, Quamaine's entire support system had fallen out beneath his feet, leaving him without his mother and without the provider who was funding his entire life. But strangely, this didn't seem to stop his lavish online presence. In fact, his spending only seemed to increase after this, as this footage of him giving away money to fans actually took place after the death of his mother, which became extremely off-putting for law enforcement, as Yolanda hadn't simply passed away, and instead, she had been brutally murdered.
Well, ha ha! I got it. I nailed it. Definitely killed her. I think he technically did both. He killed her, and probably for some life insurance, but he also robbed her. He killed her and robbed her. No,
Quamain had learned something shortly before Yolanda's passing, that not only were his mother's savings entirely willed to him, but she had also taken out 2 life insurance policies.
Don't ever tell someone. Okay, if someone takes a life insurance policy out on you, and you know it, that's fucked. If you get a life insurance policy with someone attached to it, just don't tell them. Don't tell them. Don't do it. You never know what they'll do for it, especially if it's a big amount. Just don't do it. Don't ever tell them. Ever.
In which he was the sole beneficiary, and despite Yolanda giving him anything that he could have asked for, it seemed that by this point, Quamain had simply grown tired of having to ask. And so, on September 2nd, 2012, he would offer his friend Eugene Spencer $3,500 to kill his own mother. Eugene accepted the offer, and that night he would travel to the apartment of Yolanda Holmes late at night, where he entered her room and shot her multiple times as she slept.
Hold on, you telling me the guy agreed to kill the mother for $3,500? Bro, how desperate are you for money? You know how much you have to pay me if I was gonna even think about this offer? Do you know the millions, possibly at least the hundreds of thousands? You would have to pay me up front for me to even consider this. Like, it ain't light money. I'm talking like you paying me big bucks, because I'm the one risking going to jail. We ain't doing that shit.
At the time, her boyfriend had been sleeping next to her, and despite jumping up and doing his best to fight off the attacker, Eugene would eventually beat him unconscious before fleeing the scene. Eugene would call Quamain immediately after the attack to tell him that the job was done, but rather than feeling any sort of guilt, Quamain instead had no emotion, and he simply stated, "Make sure the bitch is dead." And so Eugene went back up to that unit, this time brandishing a knife, and repeatedly stabbed Yolanda until he was absolutely certain she was gone. And with that, Quamain Holmes was a rich man, and it only cost him the life of his own mother. For a moment, the crime had worked perfectly. The police were left with no concrete leads as to who might have killed Yolanda, and the public largely believed that it was her boyfriend, whom Eugene had knocked unconscious. But no one even thought to look at Quamain, and recognizing that he was in the clear, his behavior grew brazen.
Boss said he got too cocky because he thought he got away with it, and started doing shit like bragging about money, showing off, giving 20,000 to people. Immediately, Bobby police were like, "This is odd to do for someone who just lost a mother. Let's look into him."
Almost immediately.
Quamain Wilson lost his mother to gun violence on November 14th.
My mother, she was a neighborhood woman. A guy entered her home, and murdered her, just to steal.
As he went on TV to talk about his mother's murder, where he peddled the theory to the public that this was some sort of botched robbery, all the while he showed no emotion. He wouldn't even wait a full week before depositing the money, as he took out $90,000 within just the first few days, and immediately began showing it off to his followers. And in this footage where he gave away that $20,000, throwing it into the air as if it meant nothing to him, every cent of that had come from the death of his own mother, a death in which he was entirely responsible for. It would take over a full year for Quamain and Eugene to be caught, with police largely being tipped off by his online antics. And in the end, Eugene was given a 100-year prison sentence, while Quamain received 99 years, with his legacy now permanently defined by his creation of one of YouTube's darkest videos.
Wow. That is as evil as it gets. That is as evil, as selfish as it gets, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you thought of these videos in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.